The Atlanta Falcons got their first win of the season, but the red zone offense did not help them out as much as they could have in this one. We did our very first breakdown on the 2024 Atlanta Falcons red zone offense, and while we have seen some improvements and some changes, we're still seeing some of the same mistakes creep up and affect the team this year. But, that doesn't mean that all hope is lost. We're still seeing some good opportunities and some good play calls. Yeah, I know, believe it or not, Zach Robinson is dialing up some plays, but we're just not executing as well as we could, and we're seeing the team miss opportunities and missing touchdowns, and you can't afford to do that in this league and keep getting away with it. And so we're going to take a closer look at the film today. Thanks for tuning in to All Trey Phases. Let's talk about the first series in the red zone. This is just frustrating. And this is something we talked about in the first breakdown videos, that the Falcons had too many penalties in the red zone last year, and it's extremely frustrating, as Michael Penix illustrates in this clip. Part of it was, you had a false start, and then you just had the play call not coming in. Regardless of whatever, the root cause was in this situation, you just can't allow this to happen. You can't allow this to happen, especially in the red zone. Points are too valuable in this league, and it's one thing if you just lose straight up, right? The play doesn't work, the other team just makes the better call, whatever. That's fine. You can live with that. But when you're shooting yourself in the foot and you're causing, issues from just very, very basic execution stuff like this, it's really a head scratcher. And, it's something that at this point you would hope that this team has it out of their system. Luckily we did not see them have any other penalties in the red zone for the rest of the game, but you just can't start off like this. And, it cost the Falcons a touchdown opportunity, and they ended up having to settle for a field goal in this situation. In the opener, I said that Zach Robinson had some good play calls in this game, and I know that sounds like a controversial take, but when we go and look at the film here, we're going to see that Michael Penix did miss some opportunities. And so this is the second series in the red zone. We're going to see that Drake London gets motion down here, and he's going to run a post route. And unfortunately, Penix just does not come back to this and doesn't really ever seem to have any intention of throwing this one. This is a play that he's definitely going to, want back when he sees this in the film review, but we're going to see Drake here. He comes open. Penix is trying to get this ball out quick, right? He's going towards the running back. And we're going to get a little bit better idea of why I think Penix could have held on to the ball a little bit longer this situation, because, regardless of whatever his progressions are, he has an understanding of the routes that are going to be developing and coming through on this play. So he knows that he's going to have a Drake London coming back on the post here. And so he's really watching what this safety does. And I think this is just kind of a misread from him, and maybe I'm off base here. Maybe Penix's eyes aren't even going to that safety, because he is working, this progression here towards the flat with Bijan. But based on how this safety turns his shoulders, would have liked to have seen Penix really come back to this dig. So this safety, he's already clearly showing that he's concerned about over here, right? He's not playing this back half, and we saw in the Skyview clip that London is getting manned up by the slot corner. And so just kind of seeing this initially, would have liked to have seen Penix hold that ball a little bit longer. And, I know it's easy to pause clips and everything like that. And like I mentioned before, it seems like the intent was to get this ball out as quick as possible, which makes sense. It's the red zone. Everything moves faster, but protection held up well on this play, right? When we were throwing from a clean pocket, we had the time, in my opinion, to just kind of hold, hit this backside post, and that's a walk-in touchdown. Penix has showed us before that he has a really good understanding of what his entire offensive play looks like, right? And that he's never really just thinking about half the field. Sometimes that mentality changes when you get to different areas of the field, and this was just kind of a miss. But hey, you get 5 yards, you get to this next play, but unfortunately we're gonna see another missed opportunity here. And so Kyle Pitts, again, we talk about Penix knows what he has, and I'm honestly a little confused why he didn't rip this one. It seems like he's got eyes here. This linebacker, he's set in between, him and the safety. So Pitts, from right now looks like he's covered, but he's going to run a bender route similar to what he ran against the Washington Commanders. And he's going to have all this space right here. This safety is not going to be able to make this play. Penix passes up the opportunity. And then unfortunately, Bijan drops the football. And so again, this is 2 plays in a row now where we're seeing execution errors really being the issue in the red zone, right? These aren't bad play calls. These aren't, this isn't anything to have to do with what the OC and the coaches are doing. At this point, this is on player execution. And this is in the next play here. Penix does a really good job. We talked about, how he is able to use his legs to extend plays. He's much better than people give him credit for. He does a good job getting out of the pocket here, but he just can't get that ball to Darnell Mooney. And if we could get that ball up a little bit, that's probably a touchdown. And so we saw here on the second series, really 3 missed touchdown opportunities. And that's just something that, like we said earlier, you cannot afford to leave points, especially touchdowns on the board in this league. This is a really tough defense to be going up against. And, it's just unfortunate that things went that way. And we didn't really see things get much better as the day went on. And so on those first 2 drives, we saw a lot of 11 personnel, right? We didn't see a lot of 12, 2 tight end sets. They didn't really get heavy. We saw them in heavier packages, in most of this game. In fact, the Falcons completely flipped the script on their personnel usage and were 12 personnel dominant about 85% of the game. That's usually their statistical figures for being in 11 personnel. So 1 tight end versus 2 tight end. Zach Robinson, people talked about getting better in short yardage situations. I thought the team did so, in most of the areas of the field, but things tightened up in the red zone and it got a little bit more difficult to run the ball here. Even with this new heavy package that the Falcons rolled out, we're going to see here that the Brian Flores defense, this man is a terrorizer. He loves, his exotic blitzes and looks like that. And this is just going to be a really well-called run blitz. You're going to see 55 here, just right before the snap. He starts creeping up and he is going to explode through the B gap and blow this play up. This is, it's hard to fault any one player on this. This is just a good call from the defense. And so, hey, we're seeing this guy's already in the hole, right? Matthews, what he wants to do is work up on this combo block and take that 55, that linebacker out. That linebacker vacated this area before Matthews ever really had a chance because he has to reach, this defender in front of him to help make that block easier for Warner. And so we're comboing and then we're trying to work and seal off this linebacker here. And I mean, if they don't dial up this run blitz when they do, you can see that the gap is there. And look at this space. They do a good job. Bergeron comes over and picks up this guy who's screaming in as well on his part of the run blitz. And, you're probably going to get 5 yards out of this, but, credit to Brian Flores and the defense. The other team, they're paid to make plays too, and they did a really good job on that one. And, it's just something that, happens. It's part of the game. We're going to see the Falcons continue to use 12 personnel in the red zone. They started out with some of their, traditional 11 looks, but they really started to just kind of lean into the 12 factor after things weren't really going their way to start off. And here we're going to see, Charlie Warner in the backfield. We're going to see Bijan split out wide. I like kind of mixing it up like this. Bijan, you have to account for him wherever he is on the field, so it makes the defense get out of their comfort zone. And Charlie Warner being back there, as the extra O lineman, essentially to help take care of whatever crazy blitz that Brian Flores plans on throwing at the offense here. And we're going to see that the Falcons' O-line and pass protection holds up really well. And Penix makes the right decision. We're going to watch. He targets Darnell Mooney here, who's kind of running just like a simple fade route. Penix is going to throw this basically like a back shoulder. But Mooney wasn't really expecting it. And so this is kind of one of those things where I talked about we'll see Darnell Mooney get back. And regardless of the coach speak, guys are just not going to be on the same page. They didn't have, a full training camp together. Mooney was gone. And so, if Mooney and Penix are maybe on the same page here, I think, there's a potential that that's a touchdown and you're going to see Mooney be able to get that ball. Mooney does a really good job of stacking the corner and winning that route. You could make the argument that, maybe you throw that, over the top. But again, that's more of a communication thing. That's more of a chemistry thing than anything else. But that was another potential touchdown just kind of left up for grabs there. But I mentioned this, and we'll see it in the next play. You do like how Michael Penix misses. I know that sounds like cope, but you do. He does not put the ball in harm's way when it does not get to the receiver. And so what I mean by that is that he misses, if he's trying to put the ball low outside where only his guy can get it, it misses low and outside. If he's trying to put it on the top shelf, same thing. It's going to miss high. We're not seeing bad placement where it's a missed throw, but it's also extremely inaccurate and ends up going, into the hands of the defender. And so we're going to see here that Penix does miss Ray McCloud on this deep out, and this is a very difficult throw too. I'm not gonna sit here and say that this is something that every QB in the league can do, because they can't. But I believe, and the Falcons believe, that Penix is a guy that can hit this route. And I mean, this is going to be a longer route, longer developing route. The protection holds up just long enough, but Penix is going to feel some heat on this, and he's just going to lead this one out there just a little bit too far. And unfortunately just is not able to connect with McCloud here. But this goes back to what I was just talking about. Michael Penix, when you watch him miss, that ball just now, it's not in any jeopardy of being picked off or being a turnover. And so, I know that a lot of people talk about Michael Penix and maybe having some accuracy issues, and there's a little bit of a justification there. I think he does typically start a little bit slower in games before he really heats up and gets in a rhythm. But this is a difficult throw here to make, but we like that the quarterback is not putting the ball in harm's way, because there's a lot of guys who would force a throw in these situations or start getting frustrated, but Penix does not let the misses affect him. And that's really a trait that you have to have if you are going to be a gunslinger and do some of the things that Michael Penix is able to do when he throws the football. Something we talked about in the first red zone breakdown was Zach Robinson's penchant for wanting to run out of the gun, and we saw that there was still a little bit of that, but he made some big changes here. And we're in under center, we're in 12 personnel. Personally, I think at this point, if you're in, this heavy look, you've got two tight ends on the field, you've got Kadarius Hodge on the field, who's one of your better blocking guys. Let's just get Ray McCloud out of here. This is an obvious short yardage situation. It is 3rd and short. There's really just no need to ask him to be out here to make these run blocks. I get that the Falcons are a bit short-handed at receiver this week, but let's just bring Kyle Pitts in here. He was doing a good job on the backside of some of these runs, but that's not really the issue with what happens on this play. Ivan Pace was just wrecking the short yardage run game. And this guy is a baller. I think he's about 5'11", 5'10", very undersized for a linebacker, but he plays the position the same way an undersized running back would, and he knows how to hide from the offensive line and sneak in to make plays. This is one though where I think Ryan Nuzil could have made a better effort on him, but Pace is a shifty player, and we're going to see here, we're shifting in, we're heavy on this side. And again, I like this call. I like that the Falcons were, intentional about their short yardage packages, and it looked, a lot better throughout, this game, especially in other parts of the field. But when when teams know that, it's 3rd and 1, you have to get this yard, it's a little bit more difficult. And we're going to see that the Falcons just struggle to pick this up. Nuzil doesn't really block, anybody on this play, unfortunately. Just barely gets a hand on Pace, kind of says, hey, buddy, go ahead and make that tackle. Just not what you want to see. And so we did see, some gun runs still. This one's out of pistol. And, before everybody gets mad, the Falcons had a really great day running the ball out of pistol. And, they tried to carry that over into the red zone. But again, Ivan Pace, and this he does a really great job here. I think you're going to be able to see he almost disappears on the film, pops up, and is able to come and make this play across the line. And hey, hey, my eyes didn't deceive me. We just pulled a guy. We pulled Bergeron here, running some power, which is what people have been asking for. And this had to kill Bijan, because when he sees all this space, right, in his head, he's like, oh, all I have to do is make this safety miss. And then Ivan Pace just sneaks in there out of nowhere, turns that into a 2-yard gain. And, you know, again, it's just how the game goes sometimes. Other guys are paid to make plays too. You have to, you know, understand and key in on the other team's playmakers. And unfortunately, the Falcons didn't have, you know, a great answer for pace in the red zone. And this is just all Bijan here. Still running out of the gun, which, you know, we saw a mix of it this week, but not, you know, a huge fan. We're going to overload this side of the line. So, you know, it is, you know, obvious what we're doing here. And I mean, just watch the man go to work. It's Bijan magic. Well, the Falcons offense did not have the day that they wanted in the red zone, but that is no reason to panic just yet. We saw, you know, multiple touchdown opportunities left on the field. We saw a good mix of 12 personnel and 11 personnel. I thought the distribution between Bijan and Tyler was also nice to see. I think I'd prefer some more runs for Bijan, but, you know, it's good to get them both going in that part of the field. You know, the biggest thing missing is the play action that, you know, you would want to see off of some of these heavier looks, especially some of these 12 personnel packages that the team really started to roll out this week. And I think we're going to see, you know, the team really clean some of these things up. The biggest thing too is just, you can't have these penalties. You can't have these procedural errors, these things like that. You know, there's just, those are just, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And we mentioned earlier, it's one thing if you lose, you know, just mano a mano, but you can't go out due to penalties like that. And so that's something that we really need to see the offense clean up. But I think that they're going to have the really good opportunity to do so this week against the Carolina Panthers. And so we'll see if, you know, Robinson and Penix are able to get together, clean up some of these issues, and then execute and look like the offense that I think many of us know that they can be in the part of the field. They just have to go out there and put it on tape and prove it. Thanks for tuning in to the second Red Zone Breakdown on all trade phases.